This episode contains discussions of trauma, violence, and difficult life experiences. Colorful language not excluded. Listener discretion is advised. I'm Elizabeth Porter. After 20 years working as a lawyer with families, abuse, and mental health, I'm done ignoring the patterns. It's time for hard conversations that build awareness, create compassion, and change lives. Welcome to Law and Porter. I tend to say that when I went to law school, I was chasing a ghost. If I can go through these similar experiences, I can identify with certain things that he did. And I just know a part of him that I could never otherwise know. The truth is that we all hopefully can grow to become the person we wish we'd had. People feel like they would not be loved or accepted if they were fully known. And I try to create an environment for other people to feel like it's okay to be vulnerable too.
Welcome to the very first episode of this podcast. I'm Mary Porter, and today I have a very special guest with me, my daughter, Elizabeth Porter. Some of you may know me for my years in television, but today my role is simply that of a curious interviewer and a proud mother. This podcast was born out of Elizabeth's life experiences, her work, and her heart for families and children. And today we're going to share the story behind it. Okay, Elizabeth, before we dive in, who are you today, both professionally and personally?
Okay, so what day is it? Thursday? Is it Thursday? So the podcast is a bit of a shift. I'm not a professional podcaster. Personally, I am, how old am I? 45 and figuring out life like everyone else. Mom, wife, parent of 3 children who are way too young for me to be so old. And now I'm a daughter, getting to lean more fully into that role. And professionally an attorney, which I think just sounds flashier than what it is. I'm a glorified social worker and counselor and therapist and entrepreneur. And I mean, now I own an I do not know Airbnb. And getting to do a little bit more things that are fun and fulfilling and, evolving, becoming, I think.
You really are, and you are not afraid to tackle new things. You just jump right out there, don't you?
No. No one said I wasn't afraid. I'm very afraid. But I've taught my kids, you do it anyway. But, I'm very afraid. But what's the worst that can happen?
That's right. Well, if someone met you for the first time, what would you want them to understand about you?
I think if what I try to convey immediately through my informal appearance, ponytail holder, and probably self-deprecating humor is that we're all pretty much alike. And I think that people feel like they would not be loved or accepted if they were fully known. Mm-hmm. And I try to create an environment where, and I think, part of my self-deprecation is to, lay the groundwork for other people to feel like it's okay to be vulnerable too. So I would say that, first and foremost, before who I am personally or professionally, I'm just, we're all healing, we're all growing. And so I'm just kind of like another plant in production, hoping somebody waters me and I get a little sunlight and see what happens, right?
Right.
Pretty basic.
Yeah.
We really make things complicated, don't we?
Well, what made you decide that now is the time to start this podcast?
I tend to take on new things when I'm completely overwhelmed. And so as, my health was failing and the house was falling apart, I thought this must be my sign. Really what has happened is that years ago, whether through my wisdom or divine intervention or probably the wisdom of others, I really had to learn to take a back seat in my own law firm, hire other lawyers, recognize that I could not help everyone, that I had my limits. And so thankfully I opened my eyes to the idea of business coaching with my law firm, which has really been, another growing experience, which means it wasn't always fun, but it's allowed me the freedom now to kind of step back from taking as many cases and do something that would feed me, and not literally, but
although perhaps literally,
I'll take
too.
literally. I will not turn it down. But just something. Looking back, as a kid, I don't know why we ask children what they want to be when they grow up. I mean, do they really know?
Right. They don't even know the options at that time.
We have a sign that Matthew put like when he was 2. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? A motorcycle. Like not like a motorcycle ride, a motorcycle. So, I mean, we don't know. We pick from what we know. And apparently he was learning about motorcycles. And so for most of my life, people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you have to have an answer. I mean, you can't be like, I don't know. I'm going to go to college, kind of waste my time, sleep in and figure it out. That doesn't really work. So you pick what you know. And I would always say broadcast journalism because of your being on television, or law because of Dad. And that's what I knew. I mean, we didn't have preachers in the house. We didn't have, law enforcement or military. I picked what I knew. And ironically, and I don't know if I've even ever said this to you, a huge force for me was Uncle Chuck because of his sociology and no other kid probably knows what sociology is, but because he was a professor of sociology, I learned early what that was. And to see the interplay of people and dynamics and structures, I was just always naturally curious. And I don't know if it's, from my own childhood and that, we could probably do a whole years of a podcast on just deconstructing myself. But I think there were times in my life where I had to do a lot of watching and observing the people around me to see where I fit, or to see it was just better off to watch. And I think that also, it intrigued me. And so I have no idea what your question was, but the podcast, it was a really poor time to start something new, but it was also a really great time to plug into something that fills my cup. And I do not like short, sweet conversations. I don't want someone to ask me how my day is and not really want to hear the answer. I don't ask someone how their day is and not really want to hear the answer. I like conversations with substance that we can walk away from and feel changed in some small way. And having those type conversations, I get to do that in my work. But that part of the relationship with clients is the part that I enjoy the most. And so I'd really just been praying about how some of my passions and frustrations and areas of advocacy could merge. And I don't know. I kind of got an idea and decided with my ADD, I should probably run with it now before I moved on to something else. And so that is why a podcast and why now.
Okay.
That was the short answer. Did you want the long answer?
Always.
That was as brief as I can get it today.
Okay. Take us back to your childhood now. What were you like as a child? Your personality, your interests?
The funny thing about childhood is you really only know what people have told you. So I know that I'm strong-willed, was and am. Mm-hmm. I recall being strong-willed, but also learning when, I don't say manipulation, but maybe a little deception was necessary, as in not eating the vegetables and how I might make them disappear from my plate. I know there were times when I would have chosen like just the sit-in effect of like, if you gave me an ultimatum, we're not leaving until you finish, I'd be like, well, I hope you got a book.
That's the truth.
I do remember those days. I think we did that. You did that at the beach one time. And you told me, in parenting me, you were like, look, don't ever give your kid an ultimatum you're not willing to stick to, because you would like hold my feet to the fire. But then there are also times where I'm like, okay, no one's going to get to do anything unless I eat these green beans. Or I could get up and go to the bathroom and flush them down the toilet. So I think my childhood was like most childhoods. I don't know, you survive. You feel different. You feel isolated. You feel like you're the only person going through something. And again, I think that's why I really like that conversation of finding people who are like-minded and can validate some of the things you thought were only you and felt so isolating. And you talk about them and someone says, oh my gosh, I felt the same way. And you're like, wait a minute, for 10 years, I thought I was the only one who felt this way. So that was my childhood. I mean, it really felt isolating. I felt very different. I was different. As you know, when Dad died and I was only 3 and a half, in 1983, everyone had 2-parent homes.
Yeah.
And so not only was there the spectacle that event was, but other people had fathers in their homes. They had 2-parent homes. I know because of, the circumstances of his death, it was it talked about in other people's homes. So probably what happened as a parent now, I can see that parents talked about it. Their kids heard about it. I was different. They knew things I didn't really know because,
They had 2 parents.
well, yeah, but I lost a dad. My dad died. I didn't really at 3 or 3.5 or 4 or 5. You don't ask a bunch of questions beyond what you're told or what you can see. And I think probably other people knew more about my life than I did at that age. And so I grew up thinking I felt different, and it was just me. As I get older, I realized no, that really was it was very different. So it felt that way.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Well, me too. If we could only go back. But
no joke.
we all have something.
If we could write our own script,
Right.
wouldn't it be different?
Yeah.
Were there moments early on when you felt drawn to helping, advocating, or speaking up for others?
I know, yes. I don't know how early it would have started. I posted something about starting the podcast and saying that kind of my heart behind it. And a friend of mine commented, we started school together in 3rd grade, and she commented how she was just telling her daughter the day before how I always wanted to include other people. And so
She noticed that about you even
Right.
back then. Wow.
And I did not. I know there were some events in elementary school where I had to choose between, I want this new person in our clique. And they would say, no, this is our clique and it's closed. We are not taking applications. You choose us or choose new person. And I would choose new person. So I knew early on that I wanted to sit or was drawn to the person who appeared to feel different. No, they may not have. I may have been creating this charitable organization in my head that didn't exist, but I didn't want people to feel alone. And it's kind of, I don't know. I think there's a part of me that wishes kids didn't ever have to feel that way, like they're looking out for other children's feelings. We
Yes.
could just be young and carefree. And the flip side of it is, I guess if you have to somewhat grow up a little too fast, that's not a bad thing to have.
No, I don't think so either. All right. Let's talk about your career now. Why law? Was this always part of the plan?
What plan? Whose plan? Is there a plan? Wait a minute. All along there was a plan.
Was it?
Yeah. I think it was my plan. I don't know if it's by default. I tend to say that when I went to law school, I was chasing a ghost. And it just felt like the most succinct way to say it.
Do you need to explain that chasing a ghost, what that means?
I think I'm just going to let people wonder. No, I will explain. So obviously, as you remember, so in 1983, my dad died in a plane crash. And so I was 3.5 years old. He was an attorney. And when you're 3.5, you don't have a lot of independent awareness of who your parents are as adults. They are your safe place, your mom, your dad, who they are to you. Who they are professionally or personally or what they experience is not something I don't think anyone can understand about a parent or anyone else unless they try to live a similar experience. And so I think in going to law school, my effort was I can know someone in a way that it's all I have. So if I can go through these similar experiences, I can identify with certain things that he did and just know a part of him that I could never otherwise know. About one semester in, I was like, that is the dumbest reason I've ever heard of to go to law school.
Oh, whoa, this is a lot
Wait a
harder
minute, that came with
than
a
I
ton
thought.
of debt and a lot of commitment. I mean, I don't even like hanging up pictures on my walls because that's a commitment. And here I was signing up for 3 years of student loans because wanting to identify with a dead person. It was brilliant. But, like in all things, I look at how God uses just our sometimes human logic to still steer us where we need to be. And so I don't doubt for 1 second I was where I was meant to be. Even if that's my logic in getting there, I think I've always been drawn to advocacy. And I even remember looking in college at what a law degree could afford me, not just to practice law and be in a courtroom, but what all careers could that expand to? I knew growing up in a home with a single parent that you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, and you don't know what will happen. So I needed to be financially independent, have career flexibility. And this was a decision I was making at like 17. So I'm looking at the college, it was an actual book, paper with binding. You opened it and, this career path or education path could allow you these career opportunities. And one of them was school counselor. And I just remember thinking, a law degree is a really, really off the beaten path route to be a school counselor, but what a cool career that would be. And so ironically, I think my law career has developed into a lot of counseling and working with children in a different capacity. But at the time, I did not know what really a law degree, I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know what my day-to-day would be like or really, anything you really are thinking about when you choose a career. So again, God just kind of used that to put the right people in my life and the right opportunities in my life. So the law was chasing a ghost, but thankfully, the plan was not mine and I didn't have to write it. I just got to lean in it and show up and not fight it. And so here we are.
Interesting to think about the things that influenced you, though, in making those decisions.
Everything.
All right. What surprised you most once you were actually practicing law?
I don't know. Honestly, I wonder if I could be surprised. I think that what surprised me most about law school was you go to law school with the idea of what you're going to do with that law degree and like what kind of work you want to do. And I wanted to work with children. You don't really think about, you go to law school and then they're not just going to teach you for 3 years how to work with children or this specific thing. Like I have to go learn about taxes and torts and contracts and property law. And I'm like, that was the most boring process. I mean, you're really just like, you just give me the degree. I just need to go do this.
I know how to do this on my own. Trust me.
I don't need that. Kind of like, when you're young, you're like, I don't need math. But I think that was not surprising, but definitely not well thought out. And then getting out and practicing, I don't know that it surprised me. I think the advocacy part was the part I was prepared for. And then
that's what you wanted, wasn't it?
Yeah. I didn't know what that would look like or how that worked for a lawyer. And so maybe looking back, I probably should have been surprised that my lack of planning and real life knowledge about what this would look like worked out, but it did. So my first job out of law school was prosecuting crimes against women and children. And I can't think of a better fit, not just for that time of my life, but then foundation for later. So
yes,
I guess looking back, I'm just surprised it all worked out.
Were there moments that challenged your faith, your confidence, or your emotional strength?
I could name a few days that didn't. The flip side of that chasing a ghost thing was there was maybe 3 years into practicing law where I just kicked myself because I thought, you idiot. I've struggled with grief and depression my whole life. And now I have created an everyday presence for a lack of presence. Like you have put yourself in a position where every day you will recognize you don't have that person to call and ask them. That was dumb.
Oh, yeah. Rough.
So I'm like, okay, so now to understand this person, you really put yourself in a position where you need them more. I was so envious of those who could pick up the phone and call their dad and ask, who were also attorneys, and they could say, how would you do this? Or how would you handle this? And I just thought that was stupid.
Set yourself up again.
Yeah, right. Walked right into that one. And I feel like a bird going into the, sliding glass door. Whoops. But, that our perceptions and our expectations are just not what the reality isn't what it's cracked up to be. And I had those conversations with the people whose dads were attorneys. And I would say, I envy that. And they were like, wait, you envy this? Somebody over your shoulder telling you how to do it, or being branded by that person, because my dad was this, people expect me to be this. And I thought, it gave me a silver lining of, Yes. And I have to just appreciate what is, because I don't know that we would have done it the same. I don't think, in a lot of ways, I don't think we would be alike. And so in this way, I get to kind of make my own path and finding that to be the silver lining.
Absolutely. You spent most of your career focused on children. Why is that so important?
They're really not, but they're cute and cuddly. They're dirty. I think ideally, if we do the hard work and we are willing to look back at the areas of our lives that broke us or attempted to break us, we can see what we needed. And this part will make me cry and probably make you cry, and I'm sorry for it. But I'll tell you the truth is. The truth is that, I know I should have eaten first. The truth is that we all hopefully can grow to become the person we wish we had had. And whether or not, when Dad died, you were 40 years old, 3 kids.
Who, me?
Yeah. 39.
Or 30.
39.
Okay.
3 kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, where was the manual, right?
Right.
Oh, wait, chapter so-and-so. Let me go to this. When you go to bed one night with a spouse and wake up the next day, not just not with a spouse, but not knowing whether your spouse was dead or alive for a year and 9 months. And thinking about, I think so often we want to give children the answers, or we want to have the ability to give children the answers. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can lead us to do nothing. And what children need is not just the answers. They just need to know someone's in the trenches with them. Mm-hmm. And it's not, and so saying, I don't know, or this is hard, was what I needed. And I think the 80s was a time when so much of parenting was protecting your children or shielding your children or insulating your children from whatever went on in the grown-ups world. And that was isolating, because I needed someone to say, yes, I go in the laundry room and eat cookies and ice cream until I cry because I don't know how to grieve. I'm not saying you did that. I'm just saying I needed someone to know that someone else was hurting. But because that was a decade of, not a decade, but a lifestyle, many decades of we have it all together, children didn't really see that. And I think in not seeing that, we didn't learn how to grieve. We didn't learn how to process a lot of those feelings. So everyone around me had it together. I needed to have it together, which is the biggest lie ever. And so I think, working with children allows me to sit literally with them often, say, I don't know, and just say, I really, and that lesson has been reinforced so many times over my life. I don't know the answer, but I know I'm in it with you, and we'll figure it out together. And that's why children, because their parents or their guardians or the system all has a job to do that is focused elsewhere. And someone needs to say, I don't know, but we'll figure it out together.
Yes, or just sit there and listen.
Yeah.
Or hold
Right.
them, or whatever
Right.
the case may be.
Yep. I see you.
I see you. Mm-hmm. Right. How did marriage and motherhood change you?
I think probably in proportion to the ways it complicated life, it simplified it, because you really have to figure out what aligns with your priorities and what aligns with who you are. And your time is so limited at that point that the things that don't affect the bottom line, and I don't necessarily mean financially, but whatever that bottom line is for you, if they don't affect that, they aren't a priority. So it allows you kind of to cut through a lot of the stuff that you recognize isn't important. It healed a lot of me, probably in ways that, man, this would be longer than introducing a podcast, which I think we've already done that. But, when you, blah, 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 here we go. I need the Kleenex box. Okay, so when you do not have a father in the home, trying to understand the Heavenly Father and God is very odd. It does not fit. in other homes or in the 80s, mom is nurture, she stays home, dad goes to work, he's a disciplinarian. That is what I thought families were. And if God is the father, that is who he is. He says the rules, he's the disciplinarian, there's the 10 Commandments. It was just very black and white. Mm-hmm. And becoming a parent, the way I became a parent, was at 36, grieving what I thought my life would look like at 36, feeling like God had forgotten me. God doesn't see me. All these. I mean, I didn't know what I'd be when I grew up, but I knew I'd be a mom. That was for sure, right? Mm-hmm. There was no way that would not happen. And at 36, thinking like, really, like this is the one thing I knew for sure, and obviously that's not going to be for me. Was a weird grief process, and then to learn about the character of God through feeling called to adoption, being called to surrender what that looked like to God, being willing to surrender my type A planning personality to whatever God had for me, and then seeing the love of God as a parent totally redefined what I understand a parenting role to be, what I understand the role of God to be, religion as a whole. And so it changed me, it healed me, it gave me a new identity, and a new appreciation, for the practical things, but it really redefined me in those ways.
What were the biggest adjustments that you weren't prepared for?
In parenting or motherhood or wifehood?
Mm-hmm.
Biggest adjustments. Both. Ironically, okay, this is lighten the mood for a moment here. So when I became a foster parent or chose adoption or was willing to do whatever, you don't know what you're getting into. And we could probably talk about this all day. I've been bringing up more conversations with Matthew about...
Do you need to say who Matthew is?
Well, my 9-year-old son, Matthew, who is adopted, just about like the landscape of kind of what was all happening before we met. And I've been having those conversations with him. But one of the things that surprised me, I guess, in pregnancy, your body changes and adapts and prepares you for the physical load of parenting. And you do not get that when you get a phone call to go pick up a baby. And I remember thinking, I am like very physically fit. I was playing tennis probably at least 5 days a week, at least 3 hours a day. I was probably still eating a lot of pizza, but still I was very active. And my body hurt from holding a baby all the time. That stands out to me as the craziest thing. And how I remember during those years thinking I could really run a marathon, because this is all about mental toughness. The things you can do without sleep it's just a mind shift. Like physically, we think we need these things, but apparently we don't. So if I can do this and function at the level I'm functioning with no sleep, I could do anything. And it may sound like I'm kind of making light of it, but really, it really reshaped, like, that's just a mind thing. And so if you can do all the things that parenting pushes you to do when you are so depleted, we really can do anything.
Tis true.
Yep.
What were the biggest adjustments that you weren't prepared for?
Probably, I think we did that one.
And that's what I was wondering about. Okay, you're a lawyer, a business owner, a wife, a mother. How have you navigated wearing so many hats at the same time?
I use my feet to hold things. I did joke about that yesterday. You don't. I think I spent a lot of years thinking, how do you balance it all? And then I realized that was a waste of time. You never balance it all. You just learn how to deal with the imbalance. And it's frustrating to feel like you're never enough in any area. But I think that's its own acceptance, is realizing your limitations and again, prioritizing. So, and I think that evolves. That's not, I can't say I did it right last year and I'm going to do it right this year. We just kind of pivot as we go. And so, I don't know. I think the key is you really can only wear one hat at a time. I mean, there may be a lot of quick costume changes, but you really need to be in one role at a time.
Well, I think that organization has a lot to do with pulling off your very, very busy lifestyle. You have a gift
You've
of
been to my
organization.
home. Organizing what exactly? Well, thank you.
What seasons have felt the hardest? I mean, isn't it life that whatever our current season feels like the hardest? The people used to say that, the miracle of childbirth, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking the miracle of childbirth is you do it, you're excruciating pain. It's terrible. You want to die. You want to kill everyone around you. And then you're like, let's do it again. So, when bad things happen and the worst pain of your life, you tend to forget it once it's gone. So I don't have a profound answer for that. I think that some have shaped my life more than others, but if you do handle them in a healthy way, you process them and you allow them to be kind of a stepping stone to whatever's next, and you reframe them into things that weren't, negative. And so I would have to say the current one, and for its own, for good and bad reasons. Is there advice that you wish that someone had given you earlier?
Advice?
Advice.
Oh, I was like, sure, I can pick up a lot of things I wish I'd have done sooner. Advice. I think, I don't know. I want to say I wish somebody had told me that grown-ups don't have it all together. But then I might have been like, well, this is discouraging.
Gee, what do I have to look
Right.
forward to?
Oh, yay. I think, yes, I would say the finding contentment in where you are is so much more important than planning for where you want to be.
Very good.
The discontentment has allowed me a lot of success by my definition of success, but at a personal cost. And so there's always something, if you're putting off learning a certain skill or sitting in a certain season of your life, inevitably you will have to learn it. And I wish I'd learned earlier contentedness.
And do you feel like you are a contented person?
No.
Now?
But I think that I'm willing to accept it. What happens when children have had some type of trauma early in life, or even for adults at a certain point, if what you know is trauma, whether or not you remember it, your brain remembers it. And so you develop a comfort level with chaos and needing things to constantly be changing because that's what you know. The idea of sitting in your own skin and being comfortable there is very foreign. So you accept the devil and then the things you don't understand are pushed away. And I wish that I had sought that earlier. But thanks to my blood pressure, I am seeking it now. And it is very foreign. And I mean, even recently when I was like trying to name a certain feeling I had, I was thinking, I think this feeling, and I don't even know the name for it, is that nothing's on fire. Like, I don't feel that cortisol fight or flight right this minute, and I don't know what that's called. And I still am not sure I've been able to accurately label it. But it's just now something where I'm like, okay, is this bad? No, it's okay to sit. No, okay. Yeah.
Wow. How do you stay hopeful while witnessing so much pain?
I remember years ago when I was prosecuting, and I was friends with one of the probation officers, and he would laugh because I, even as a prosecutor, just had so much optimism for people. I mean, I was prosecuting some of the worst of society and working with victims who'd been through some of the worst tragedies ever. And he just would kind of laugh about, I know you feel the need to have this speech with them Like, you're going to change their life. And I was, so go ahead and, we'll allow time for you to do that or whatever. And I thought, thank you. Because so many people were saying, oh, she's got that optimism. She thinks she can change the world. That'll change. Wait till you're practicing law a little bit. And it, at first, so that was conveyed to me as a weakness. That meant to me, okay, I'm going to toughen up and harden. And so this shift came when I realized that was my strength and that I didn't want to lose it. So I had to embrace and learn that if I was going to choose to work in those things that did pull at me emotionally, make me still think there was hope, which meant that I was constantly disappointed, then I had to change how I would handle, that I would have to deal with. I was choosing that. It was a choice, and you're going to have to also have a plan for how you handle it. But you're choosing now not to back away from those things that hurt you and might destroy your hope. So at this point, I've just chosen it and realized that I could leave it, I guess, that it's a choice. I'm not locked into this. I don't have to look. I can close my eyes and pretend all these things aren't happening, but I'm choosing to look.
Yes, that's pretty powerful. What anchors you when things feel overwhelming?
Let me see these. We might be here all day. Let me see. I'll give it right back. What anchors me when things feel overwhelming? Actually, we are almost finished.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anchors me. I don't know, because I don't know that I've. So I think to fight hopelessness for me is action. And I would much rather feel like I am in the arena fighting whatever feels hopeless than doing nothing. And so, again, I don't remember the question. What was the question? We are going to have to edit this one, man.
What anchors you when you feel?
What anchors me?
Mm-hmm.
Action. So action anchors me. And I think, lately I'm realizing that might kind of also be called a boundary. I'm not sure, but recognizing the part I can control. And I cannot solve the world's ills. I can't solve all the world's problems. And this is very overwhelming, but what can I do? And is that within my capacity? If it's not, what could someone else do whom I could connect? But action.
Yes, I agree. What's the core message that you're trying to convey today in this podcast?
So, and I've really spent a lot of time trying to articulate it, because when you look at 45, 43, whatever years of experience in grief and trauma and, so much energy focused on figuring out your own life, mm-hmm. How do you summarize that? So I think that for me, the podcast is a way to give people permission to look at all the ugly stuff. And I say ugly, the things that, again, like that tried to break them, and just see them, call them what they are. Like, not avoid them, not refuse to look back at them, call it what it is, take its power away from you. Try to figure out how it's impacted your life, and really, like, you can say, this is who I am, and I'm not going to change, and I'm just the way I am, which is really horrible and not going to leave you any room for growth. Or you can say, let me figure out why I am this way. What possibly could have made me this way? And the more you uncover and you look back and you break things down, then you can choose which pieces you want to carry with you further. You can put things down. I mean, you can say that this survival skill doesn't serve me anymore. I don't need this. I do not need this. I've said earlier in interviews, you have arrows in your quiver, and most of them are born from survival skills, what you needed at a certain stage in your life. They don't always serve you. And so if aggression or defensiveness or yelling or fighting or whatever those things are that got you through, like, they have merit. They fought you out of a dark place, but you don't need it anymore. And it's only by looking back and recognizing it. I mean, it's decluttering, but as a person, you don't need that anymore. What do you need instead, and how do you get it? Do you need hope? Do you need better communication skills? Do you need counseling for someone else to tell you what you need? So I think deconstructing where we are and deconstructing so many things of asking why allows us to form our own opinions and kind of take control of things we probably didn't have control of in the past. So my goal is to, one, say it's okay to do that. Doesn't make you, broken in a way that can't be fixed. It is empowering. And that process is necessary for whatever's the next stage of your life. If you want the next stage of your life to look different from what this looks like, then you're going to have to go backwards and then choose which of those things you want to take with you and which of the things you're going to put down.
And sometimes it's just hard to sift through everything to get to the essence.
It is hard, but I just don't think that things are always meant to be easy. That's just not the way life is. Mm-hmm. But I do think, you can do the hard work on that and save yourself years of hard later. I think it can really make things in the future a whole lot easier.
Yes. Well, what kind of conversations do you hope to have here on this network?
Honest, ugly, real, safe, and then I think hopeful, and I think whole. I think a way to say that the pieces of us are not, some pieces may not be great, but the whole is really wonderful. There was a poem that I cannot recall everything I've ever learned, but there was a poem called There Was a Child Went Forth, I think, and it was a Walt Whitman poem, and it's very, very long, as you can imagine. But one of the phrases and the point is, I think there was a child went forth, and everything he saw he became, and I'm probably botching it. But everything we see becomes a part of us in some way. And we can choose the weight it carries, but we are all becoming. And at one point we didn't have a choice, now we do. And so I just want these conversations to be somewhat healing, because we just recognize that there are parts of us that we would wish away, but they really as a whole are really pretty.
Do you see any way that your background gives you a different slant for the podcast?
Probably. I don't think I could articulate it, but I think it makes me more receptive, and I think it makes me more of kind of a soft landing. The egg toss where people toss the egg, and there's always the people who lose it because they go to the egg and they it's like you're fighting against the egg, and then you wonder why it cracks. And then there are the people who know how to give and let the egg kind of come into their hands and a soft place to land. And so I hope that it feels like a soft place to land.
Yes.
A safe place to land.
When this podcast reaches people, what do you hope that it changes for them?
I hope it prompts self-awareness. I really just think that there's so much... I see so many people unwilling to bend because they think everyone else should adapt to who they are, and even their children. So she needs to do this, and I'm thinking, you're the adult. You should have the skills to do this. So I hope it prompts self-evaluation and self-awareness.
What does success look like for you in this project?
It doesn't, and that's the beauty of it. It doesn't. I mean, I think it's
go
fulfilling.
with the flow. Huh?
I think it doesn't. This is not that it fulfills me. It could help one person, and that would be great. But it's going to be, I want it to be something I enjoy, or it really serves no purpose.
Mm. If a listener is in the middle of a hard season, what would you want them to hear today?
You have no idea what is working in your favor. I remember years ago, and this was in a professional context, not faith-based, but the question was, if the world were rigged in your favor, what would you do differently? How would you approach situations? How would you think? How would you plan if you knew the world was rigged in your favor? And so as someone who does have a faith and leans heavily into that faith, for me, part of faith is believing it is. And that even the bad, it is all rigged in your favor. And so think that way. Think in a way that allows you to step into your wholeness as an overcomer, as someone who is whole, as someone who can do or can accomplish or can have, even if that means we got to go back a little and look at the way, how we got here, but to step into believing that the world is rigged in your favor.
Boy, that's an interesting thought now.
Mm-hmm. It's hard.
Could change some things.
It is. And it's very hard to believe that way.
It surely is. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that feels important for listeners to know to you now?
I'm hungry. I'm really hungry. No, I feel very well deconstructed right now.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's time to wrap up our podcast. Any last words that you'd like to share with us?
This hour has been an honor for me because, how many people can say they were interviewed by Mary Porter?
For what that's worth.
For what that's worth. But again, this time I didn't have to chase a ghost, but I got to sit in the shoes and be a part of something that you experienced and get to know you better. And so that is an honor for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And how did it feel?
Hot. These lights are really warm.
Things that you don't realize when you're just watching a show.
I'll be honest. A friend had asked me to be on her podcast, and I left there and I was trying to bottle up how did that make me feel? And another thing I hope that guests here will feel is seen. When someone asks you about your life and you listen, that's a really powerful skill. And at this stage of, 40s, wife, mom, professional, you don't get that often. No one really cares how you're doing. They just need to know what you can do for them.
Right.
And so it feels seen and heard, and just to have someone listen. It feels good.
Well, thank you for inviting me to work with you today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting you to torture me.
Thank you for joining us for this first conversation. I'm Mary Porter, and I'm honored to have introduced you to my daughter and to this podcast. I hope you'll stay tuned for the stories yet to come.
Thank you to our sponsor, Porter Law Group, for supporting these conversations. When family is on the line, experience matters. Porter Law Group specializes in custody and family law with compassion at every step. Visit porterlaw.ms now to schedule your consultation to protect what matters most.